Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tired F1 Pod. Amar, how are you doing?
I am tired, but I'm ready. It's Monaco. This seems like the weekend where the stars are going to align for us.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a really interesting race in Imola this weekend. If you haven't checked it out, have a little look at our review video. Um, I am going to hit you with a quote. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
So this is Karun Chandok. Okay, he says, I would have loved to see the regulation change pushed back 2 years. He's talking about 2026. We're getting to this point now where the teams are starting to close in a bit more on Red Bull. Next year will be closer. And then with the hybrid rules coming out for 2026, somebody's going to get it massively right and somebody's going to get it massively wrong. Is Karim right? Are we bringing in these regulation changes too early? Go.
Yes, maybe no. Um, I have mixed feelings about it. I completely get what he's saying, and on the back of two exciting races, right? It now feels like there are at least three teams in the mix. This year, potentially for a constructors championship, probably not a drivers championship. Next year, looking at where we're at right now, is wide open. I mean, this Max is not a shoe-in anymore for next year. We would have thought that would have been the case. So just based on that alone, I would love to see a couple more years of these regs. I really would. I think it would be great to see because Mercedes could probably get in the mix as well. Aston Martin in a couple of years could get in the mix as well. So if potentially these regulations are delayed until 28, according to him, right, we might have 3 or 4 exciting seasons on our hands. And I think the other case to be made in favor of this, though, is also the fact that the budget cap is relatively new, right? That's not a technical part of the regulations, but sort of the other side of the regulations that has an impact. I just feel like giving teams a little bit more time to catch up, given that we're coming off a pandemic and these regs were also delayed, might be a good idea. So my initial instinct is to say yes, we should do that.
For how long?
2 years is fair. I think 2 years is fair. I mean, if we're looking at, again, like I said, 25 looks like it's wide open. And if we push these regs back to 28, then 26 and 27, so you could potentially have three really, really exciting seasons where you don't quite know who's going to win every year, at least from the top three teams as it stands right now, and top four maybe by then if you add Mercedes in the mix. So I think from a fan's perspective, it makes sense to do that. I do recognize that there are other machinations at play. There's a new team coming in Audi, potentially another team coming back in Andretti. Red Bull's going to go through their manufacturer change here soon. So there are implications at play. And oh, by the way, the driver market is kind of rotated based on that too. So I don't know that it's just as simple as saying, oh yeah, hey, let's just delay because last time we did that, there was a pandemic. It made sense to do so. This time around, not so much. So commercial interests at play. So I don't know. We can go through the list of why it wouldn't be possible, but it does make sense to have a little bit more of excitement, at least at the end of this reg set.
I guess that's the problem, isn't it? So Audi will turn around and say, "Well, you told us that there was going to be a regulation change in 2026, so we're out then. See you later."
Yeah, I mean that's again. I mean these things are. There's probably like lawyers and financial people that play with all of these, and I don't know what the machinations are. So I don't think we can actually do that, right? So while I would agree with Karun, I don't see that can happen, not at this late stage in the game. I think what probably triggered his comment is also not just the simple fact that there's more competition now, but it's the simple fact that we don't quite know what the 26 regulations really look like, or they're still in flux, right? We just don't. So I wonder if part of it is just that, and maybe there are clauses in, Audi's contract and others that allow for that. But good God, this would be too late to. I mean, we're almost halfway, reaching the halfway mark in this season too. So
Yeah, but I think the chassis regulations haven't actually been set in stone yet, so no one started work on the chassis regulations for 2026. So even if you changed it right now, what are you changing?
I don't know. Again, I don't know the full extent of what the impact of that is, right? And so I think that there's, I think where we're at now, right? Again, is I think Formula One has kind of backed themselves into a corner, right? They've you've kind of gone down this path of being sustainable by 2030, and that's the aim, right? That's sort of where all the marketing has been at. And oftentimes what happens with these things is the marketing, the branding sort of takes precedent and sort of priority over everything else. So from what I've heard, there is reason to kind of make massive changes in 2030 again, which would just be 4 years into this next set of regs. So I think you kind of have to look down the line a little bit and say, well, what is it that they're trying to accomplish here? Because part of all these rule changes is to be more sustainable, right? At least on track, right? And I don't know that they're actually kind of doing that now, but I think they're still aiming to anyway.
I always get excited about regulation changes. I'm not going to lie. Like every time they happen, I kind of feel like, oh, this will be fun. Let's see what happens. And every single time, after the initial buzz of someone new having absolutely nailed the regulations, it settles back down into sort of fairly routine domination. I'm just trying to think back to every rule change there's been since the mid 90s, and where it all started for me was the track width change between 1997 and 1998. So Williams had been the dominant team all through the 90s, and then from 97 to 98, the FIA mandated that the cars would get narrower. So Williams lost their domination. McLaren became dominant for 98, 99. And then Ferrari took over. And then we had the regulation change in 2009. And although Brawn absolutely nailed it and were dominant in the first season of that, or at least the first half of that season, it was actually Red Bull that had got it properly right. So they were then the dominant team. So regulation change didn't really bring more competition. It just made Red Bull the dominant team. And then in 2014, we had the big engine regulations. And again, Red Bull were usurped. Everyone was happy about that. But then Mercedes was suddenly the dominant team and continued their domination until we got bored of that as well. We had the regulation change in 2017, which again, Mercedes kind of nailed and continued their domination, although Ferrari got really close, thanks to one Mattia Binotto. And then we did. And then we had our regulation change in 2022. So where again Red Bull have now nailed it and are dominating. So regulation changes always feel like, oh, it's going to be a massive reset. Brilliant. We're going to see somebody new at the front. But actually what tends to happen is that you get one team that's absolutely nailed it and then dominates for large portions of the next period. And the irony of it all is that by the time you're changing the regulations, that dominant team is starting to hit that glass ceiling and everybody else is starting to catch up. And it's what's happening right now. And it's being exacerbated, I think, by the fact that the budget cap means that you can't do these tiny little marginal gains that spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on this tiny little aerodynamic tweak that's going to get you a hundredth of a second, but it's going to keep you ahead of the chasing pack. They don't have that anymore, which is what was happening in the seasons before. So it means that actually the field compresses a bit more quickly. And the fact that McLaren and Ferrari are now nipping at the heels for race wins on the regular should make everyone think, yeah, maybe it's not right to go down the 2026 change just yet. And just to that point about sustainability, well, okay, if we don't change in 2026 and we do change in 2030, that does give F1 the opportunity, I think, to do something completely different.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think we're back at square one, right? With Audi coming in, right? I think you're gonna doing this is gonna create a domino effect in ways that they probably don't want to, right? So I think that, to your point, there's many ways to sort of think this creatively. I think the question is, what is the trade-off for having to do that just yet, right? And I'm not sure that they're quite prepared to do that. They'd rather just have a rule set change come in 26, and then, as Domenicali has hinted at many times, start working on 2030 already, even when 26 changes are not aligned or sort of not outlined and confirmed. He's ready to work on 2030, which to me says that they're already looking for something even better or have under.
So for me, if they want to do it in 2030, that would be perfect, right? Audi at the moment want to be in F1 because, number one, the engine rules kind of fit with their corporate policy. The sustainability push is, which I think is admirable. I don't think this is the way to be fully sustainable, but Audi seem on board with it. And there've been some changes made with the hybrid system. So the MGU-H, sorry, that bit of the hybrid system will be scrapped, so you get a bigger battery. And the idea is that's meant to level the engine playing field, so Audi don't have like a mountain to climb in order to develop their own MGU-H and stuff. I get it, that all makes sense, but 2030, bring out a normally aspirated engine, make it fully sustainable. Audi might not like that, but there is another team within VW Group which would. Porsche are all about synthetic fuels. They've created an entire factory in South America that is dedicated to creating synthetic fuels. I mean, to the point that it's even that plant is powered by sustainable fuels, right? They're going the full hog. So if you introduced a regulation change in 2030 with normally aspirated engines and fully synthetic fuels, I think Porsche would be very interested, and that would be sustainable, and we'd get our sound back. I'd love to see some V10s back again. The other side of the coin is we complained last week about how massive the cars have got. A large part of that is because of the packaging that's required for the hybrid systems. Yeah. So you're never going to get back to the size of cars that you had in 2005, 2006, because the safety implications are significant, right?
Sure.
A lot of the part of the reason that the cars are as big as they are right now is because you need to have all of the safety structures in place, and that adds size and weight. But you can get rid of the complexity, and that will reduce weight, and it will reduce the size of the cars. And if you can do that, do it. And if it means pushing it back to 2030, and it means that we get these regulations really maturing and everyone really, really getting to it, and you've got the budget cap, meaning that the teams at the top can't just run off into the distance, what you're going to see is really, really close, unpredictable races and championships over the course of the seasons before you have that change.
I think what you're alluding to, and what I would like to see, is the philosophy behind the timing of changing regulations, right? Like the details of this aside, right? Why not give regulations a longer time period to kind of work themselves out? Like, why this need to change every 4 to 5 years? You could, given the budget cap restrictions, to your point, it being more competitive. Wouldn't you want to be in a place where the regulations have matured to a place where there are 7, 8 teams that are competing regularly for podiums? Right? That's kind of what you want too, right? So in some ways, the argument for pausing 2026 is kind of made on its face too, right? Just let this play out for a few more years and see how competitive it gets. If you have at least half or 3/3 of the field competing for a championship, that isn't that kind of what you want, even from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's always knee-jerk reactions to this, right? So between 2016 and 2017, the reason that regulation change came in was because there was so much Mercedes domination, and the powers that be thought, okay, let's change the aero regs, but it didn't help, did it? That to me doesn't seem like a good reason to change a set of regulations. And then in 2026, the reason, as we've said, F1 are really keen to have another manufacturer on board. They really, really wanted VW. They wanted someone from that group, and they've never had a VW group entity in F1. So they brought these engine regulations forward. They did it to get Audi on board, and it's worked. But at what cost, I guess, is the problem. When we got to sort of 2007, 2008, you know, the narrow body regulations had been in place since 1998, right? They'd been there for essentially 10 years. And you still had 2 teams at the front that were really dominant, Ferrari and McLaren. But at least you had a couple of teams, you know, you still had them. You didn't have a budget cap at that time, so those teams could just spend what they wanted to spend. I think they were spending upwards of sort of 300 million a year at that point. But now that you don't have that, and we have the wind tunnel restrictions as well, actually you'd expect that you leave the regulations a bit longer, things converge. And they're converging right now. You want to keep the excitement that you had in Miami and the excitement that you had in Imola. Don't change the rules.
Yeah, but again, they're kind of boxed in now, aren't they? If they want Audi to come in, unless they can find a way to sweeten the deal, or there's something that can be done there, and I wouldn't know what that looks like.
Yeah,
there's probably no reason to make this change this far, this so late in the game. This is really late. Like this stuff again should probably have been highlighted maybe a year ago, or even longer. And then again, you kind of ruin the beauty of the silly season too, right? Which I kind of keep coming back to, is that the driver market has sort of been dictated in part by these regulations, right? We just had Albon sign a multi-year deal as well, so it's what's going to happen to Max, what's going to happen to Carlos. Like there's so many other questions that just getting rid of 26 as the deadline date, or even pushing it back a year or two, has implications down the field. And I'm not quite sure they're ready to tinker with that yet, right? So I think Formula One's brought themselves to a point where, look, their ratings are up.
I actually don't even know. I don't even know what they're tinkering with. Like we don't even have the chassis regulations.
But we don't
every
have
time
that.
we hear
Exactly.
about it,
Exactly.
every time we hear about it, they sound terrible. The engine regulations have dictated chassis regulations, because the engines, the energy recovery system doesn't allow them to even keep pace down a straight. I mean,
I guess you could argue then that
half-baked to me.
maybe it's not 26, right? Maybe it's 2030 that they need to really kind of look at as a deadline, and say if they truly are going to make the kind of changes that we're expecting to see with the chassis and power unit in 26, then maybe the question is whether 2030 is a good deadline to kind of make more changes to. Again, a 4-year window does not seem enough, right? And we're kind of seeing that, and now you're just kind of hoping and sort of praying and gambling that all, or at least a few teams will get it right. And we saw in these reg sets that only one team got it right initially, and it's taken everyone else at least another 2.5 years to kind of get right there. So I don't know, but it does seem like the push for noise and V8s and possibly V10s is on the cards too. So I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of do this anyway.
There you go. The horse has bolted, and on that bombshell, I think we're going to have to call it a day. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We read all of them. We even reply to some of them. We'll see you in the next one.